You set an intention. You promise yourself, this time will be different. You'll be more patient, more disciplined, more consistent. You'll wake up for Fajr. You'll control your temper. You'll stop wasting time. And for a moment, you mean it. You really do. But then the same patterns return. You delay what you know you should do. You react when you meant to stay calm. You scroll when you meant to be productive. You fall back into habits you swore you'd quit. And afterward, there's this quiet confusion. Why did I do that again? I knew better. So why didn't I do better? You think the problem is willpower, that you're just weak, that you lack discipline, that if you just tried harder, forced yourself more, pushed through the resistance, you'd finally change. But it's not working. You keep failing, and you're starting to believe maybe you're just broken. Maybe you're just not cut out for this. Maybe change isn't possible for you. But that's not the problem. The problem is there's a voice in your head that sounds exactly like you. It uses your logic. It knows your weaknesses. It speaks in your tone. And it's not serving you. It's your nafs, your ego, your lower self, your impulse. And it's sabotaging every good intention you have. Not dramatically, not obviously, quietly. In 1,000 small choices you make every day without even realizing you're being led. Just 5 more minutes. You deserve a break. They disrespected you first. You'll start tomorrow. All of it sounds reasonable, logical, like your thoughts. But it's not you making those decisions. It's your nafs. And you're obeying it without even knowing it's not you. This isn't about willpower. This is about awareness. Because you can't control what you can't recognize. And right now, you don't know when your nafs is speaking. Learn to spot it and everything changes. You think you're making conscious choices, but there's a voice narrating your decisions constantly. I deserve this. I'll start tomorrow. They disrespected me first. Just this once won't matter. It sounds like you. It uses your logic, your reasoning, your voice. But it's not you. It's your nafs. In Islam, the nafs is your ego, your lower self, your impulse. It's the part of you that wants what it wants when it wants it. Like a child that doesn't understand delayed gratification, doesn't care about consequences, just wants comfort, pleasure, immediate relief. And when left unchecked, it runs your life. But here's the thing, the nafs isn't evil. It's not some demon inside you. It's just undisciplined, untrained. And because it's part of you, it sounds like you. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't say, I'm your ego speaking. It disguises itself as your thoughts, your logic, your needs. That's why it's so effective. You obey it thinking you're making a conscious choice, but you're not. You're being led. You're lying in bed, alarm goes off for Fajr, and immediately the voice, you're so tired, you need rest. 5 more minutes won't hurt. Allah is merciful, you can make it up later. Sounds reasonable, right? Sounds like you thinking logically about your needs, but it's not, it's your nafs. And you obey it, you hit snooze, you miss Fajr, and later you feel guilty. But in that moment, you genuinely thought you were making a reasonable decision. Or you're about to do something productive, start that project, clean the house, exercise, and the voice, you're not in the right mindset. You'll do it better tomorrow. Just relax for now. You've had a hard day. Again, sounds logical, sounds like self-care, but it's your nafs avoiding discomfort, choosing ease over effort, and you believe it's you because it's using your voice. Or someone criticizes you, and instantly the voice, how dare they? They don't know what you've been through. You need to correct them. You need to defend yourself. You can't let this slide. Sounds like self-respect, right? Sounds like standing up for yourself. But it's your nafs protecting your ego. And you react. You say things you regret. Because in that moment, your nafs convinced you that reacting was the right thing to do. This is how it operates. It doesn't tell you to do obviously wrong things. It frames everything as reasonable, justified, necessary. And because it sounds like you, you don't question it. You just obey. The voice in your head that justifies, defends and rationalizes, that's not you, that's your nafs. The nafs isn't stupid. It's actually very intelligent. It doesn't tell you to do obviously wrong things. It's smarter than that. It uses your intelligence, your knowledge, even your faith to justify what it wants. It sounds logical, reasonable, sometimes even spiritual, and that's what makes it so dangerous. You're scrolling when you should be working. Your nafs doesn't say waste time. It says you need a mental break. You've been working hard, just 5 minutes to recharge. Sounds healthy, right? Self-care. Except 5 minutes becomes an hour. And you're not recharged, you're more drained, but your nafs framed it as wisdom. So you obeyed. You're about to pray. Your nafs doesn't say skip prayer. It says you're not in the right state of mind. You're too distracted. Prayer requires focus. Maybe wait until you can be more present. Sounds spiritual. Sounds like you care about the quality of your worship. But it's a trap, because that right state of mind never comes. And you delay and delay until the prayer time passes. You snap at your spouse. Your nafs doesn't say be cruel. It says they need to hear this. You're just being honest. Communication is important. If you don't say it now, resentment will build. Sounds like healthy relationship advice, but it's not. It's your nafs justifying cruelty as honesty, aggression as communication. And you believe it because it sounds smart. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, called the struggle with the nafs the greater jihad, not a physical battle, the internal one. He said it's greater than fighting enemies on a battlefield. Why? Because it's constant, it's invisible, and it uses your own mind against you. The smarter you are, the better your nafs is at justifying itself. Because it has more tools to work with, more knowledge to twist, more logic to hijack. It doesn't argue against you. It works with your intelligence. It starts with what it wants: comfort, ego protection, immediate gratification, then works backwards to find a logical justification, and you believe it because it sounds like you thinking clearly. You know you should apologize, but your nafs says, why should you go first? They were wrong too. If you apologize now, you're admitting defeat. Stand your ground. Sounds like self-respect, but it's ego. Your nafs protecting itself from the vulnerability of admitting fault. You see someone succeed. Your nafs whispers, they got lucky. They had connections. It's not really merit. You think you're just being realistic, observant, but it's envy. Your nafs can't handle someone else winning, so it diminishes their success to protect your ego. You're about to give charity. Your nafs says, you worked hard for this money. You have bills. You need to be responsible. Give when you're more secure. Sounds like financial wisdom, but it's greed. Your nafs holding tight to what it has, and it sounds so reasonable you don't even question it. This is the trap. Your nafs doesn't sound like a villain. It sounds like you, thinking logically, making wise decisions, and you obey it over and over without ever realizing you're being led. Your nafs doesn't argue against you. It uses your own logic to convince you. The nafs doesn't win in dramatic moments. It doesn't need you to commit major sins. It wins in small, invisible choices. Tiny moments where you obey without noticing. And each small obedience strengthens it, makes it louder, more convincing, more automatic. You were going to wake up for Fajr. Your nafs whispers, 5 more minutes. You obey. You were going to stay calm during that conversation. Your nafs says, correct them now. You obey. You were going to start that project today. Your nafs says, tomorrow you'll be more motivated. You obey. None of these feel like major failures. They're small, insignificant. You barely notice them. But the nafs thrives in the ordinary. It doesn't need big sins. It just needs small obedience. 1,000 times a day. And before you know it, your entire life is run by impulse disguised as reason. You see someone succeed. Your nafs whispers, they don't deserve that. You work harder. You think it's just an observation, but it's envy. and you don't even recognize it as your nafs because it sounds like you just being honest. You're about to apologize. Your nafs says, why should you go first? You weren't the only one wrong. Sounds like fairness, but it's ego protecting itself from vulnerability. And you listen. The apology never happens. The relationship stays broken because your nafs convinced you that being right matters more than being connected. You're about to be generous, give charity, help someone. Your nafs says, what if you need that later? You've worked hard. You deserve to keep this. Sounds like responsibility, financial wisdom, but it's greed. Your nafs hoarding, and it frames it so well. You actually feel virtuous for not giving. You're about to be productive. Your nafs says you're not inspired right now. Wait until you feel motivated. You'll do better work then. Sounds like self-awareness, but it's avoidance. Your nafs running from discomfort, and that right time never comes because your nafs will always find a reason to delay. Here's what's terrifying. You can go through an entire day, an entire life obeying your nafs in 1,000 small moments and never once realize it's not you making those choices. You think you're reasoning, deciding, choosing, but you're just following impulse dressed up as logic. Every delay, every justification, every rationalization, every defensive reaction, every moment of avoidance, your nafs, and you didn't even see it because it sounds like you, uses your voice, your intelligence, your values, and turns them all against your own goals. Your nafs doesn't need big sins. It just needs small obedience 1,000 times a day. Islamic scholars identified stages of the nafs, 4 main states. And where you are on this spectrum determines how much control you actually have over your life. Most people never move past stage 1. They spend their entire lives stuck there, obeying their nafs, feeling bad about it, then obeying again. Stage 1, the commanding nafs. Nafsul ammara. This is where most people live. The nafs commands, you obey. Impulse leads, awareness is minimal. You want something, you take it. You feel anger, you react. You feel discomfort, you avoid. There's no pause between impulse and action. The nafs says do this and you do it. Sometimes you feel guilty afterward, but in the moment itself, you're not even aware you had a choice. You hit snooze. You scroll endlessly. You snap at people. You procrastinate. You indulge. And afterward you think, why did I do that? But you do it again tomorrow because you're in stage 1. The nafs commands, you obey. Repeat. Stage 2. The reproaching nafs, al-lawama. This is where awareness starts. You begin to feel the gap between what you did and what you wanted to do. Regret shows up. Not just guilt, actual reflection. I could have handled that better. I didn't need to react that way. Why do I keep doing this? This stage is uncomfortable because now you see the problem, but you don't yet have the tools to stop it consistently. You catch yourself after the fact, not during. You recognize your nafs after you already obeyed it. And that awareness can feel like failure, but it's not. It's progress. You can't fix what you can't see, and you're starting to see. Most people get stuck between stage 1 and 2. They oscillate. Obey their nafs, feel bad, obey again, feel bad again. They never move forward because they don't understand what's actually happening. They think the problem is willpower, so they beat themselves up, try harder, fail again, and the cycle continues. Stage 3, the inspired nafs. Here's where real change happens. You start catching your nafs while it's speaking, not after, during. You feel the impulse to react and you pause. You hear the justification and you recognize it as your nafs. You notice the urge and you don't automatically obey. This doesn't mean you never fail. It means you're aware. You see the choice. Sometimes you choose wisely, sometimes you don't. But you're no longer blind. Your nafs is losing its invisibility. And the moment it's seen, it weakens. Stage 4, the tranquil nafs. This is surrender, not in a defeated way, in a peaceful way. Your nafs is no longer running the show. Awareness is. You still feel impulses, but they don't control you. You can observe them without obeying them. You're content, trusting, at peace. Not because life is easy, but because you're no longer at war with yourself internally. Most people never reach stage 4. That's fine. It's not about perfection. It's about movement. The question isn't, have I mastered my nafs? The question is, am I more aware today than I was yesterday? And here's the truth. You can't skip stages. You can't go from stage 1 to stage 4 overnight. You have to learn to recognize your nafs. That's stage 2. And most people never get there because they don't know what to listen for. They don't know that the voice in their head isn't always them. You can't defeat your nafs, but you can graduate from obeying it blindly to recognizing it clearly. Here's the secret. The nafs loses power the moment you recognize it. It thrives in darkness, operating below your conscious awareness, disguising itself as you. But the second you spot it, that's my nafs talking, it weakens. Not because you fought it, because you saw it. Ibn Arabi, a great Islamic scholar, taught that awareness is light. And light weakens the nafs. You don't defeat it through force, you illuminate it. When you see it clearly, it can't deceive you anymore. Because its power was never in its strength. Its power was in its invisibility. So how do you spot it? You ask questions. In moments of choice, before you act, you pause and ask, whose voice is this? Mine or my nafs? Am I choosing this consciously or reacting impulsively? If I were advising someone else in this situation, would I tell them to do this? Is this serving who I want to be or just what feels good right now? These questions create space, a gap between impulse and action. And in that gap, awareness can return. You're about to send an angry text. Pause. Is this me or my nafs? The urge to defend yourself, to attack, to correct them, that's almost always nafs. Your ego protecting itself. If you recognize it as nafs, you can choose not to send it. Not because you suppressed the anger, but because you saw it for what it was and it lost its authority. You're delaying something important. Pause. Is this wisdom or my nafs avoiding discomfort? Sometimes rest is wise, but often it's avoidance. Your nafs running from effort. If you spot it, you can choose differently, not through force, through clarity. You're justifying something you know is questionable. Pause. Is this logic or my nafs rationalizing? When you start listing reasons why something's okay, that's usually your nafs. Building a case, defending an impulse, if you see it, the justification collapses because
yourself the way Allah created you, capable, worthy and strong. When Allah removes someone who made you feel small, it is because He never intended for you to live your life believing you were weak. 4. Walk away from the person who stays close only to witness your weakest moments but disappears when you become strong. My brothers and sisters, there is a type of person whose presence in your life feels comforting when you are broken, but strangely distant when you begin to heal. This person appears during your lowest moments. They sit with you when you are in pain. They listen when you are struggling. They offer words that seem supportive on the surface. They make you feel as though they care deeply about your well-being. But what you do not realize is that their attachment to you is not always rooted in love. Sometimes their attachment is rooted in your weakness. This person becomes comfortable seeing you dependent, vulnerable, and emotionally fragile. Your broken state gives them a sense of importance. It gives them a role. It gives them emotional control over your life. When you are weak, they feel needed. When you are lost, they feel significant. When you rely on them for emotional support, they feel powerful without openly showing it. They may never admit this, even to themselves, but their behavior reveals the truth. But something begins to change the moment you start to heal. The moment you begin to regain your strength, their energy shifts. The moment you stop depending on them emotionally, their presence becomes less consistent. They no longer show the same level of attention. They no longer appear as invested in your life. You may notice that they are quieter when you share your progress. They are less enthusiastic when you share your success. They are less present when you stand on your own without needing their emotional support. This is because your strength removes the role they once held in your life. Your healing removes their emotional influence. Your independence removes their silent control. And without realizing it, you begin to see that their closeness was strongest when you were weakest. This type of person is dangerous because their connection to you was not built on your growth, but on your vulnerability. They were comfortable with your pain, but uncomfortable with your power. They remained close when you were broken, but distant when you became whole. Their presence was tied to your weakness, not your elevation. Allah warns us in the Quran that there are people who are distressed when good touches you, but satisfied when hardship reaches you. This reveals a hidden reality about human nature. Not everyone who stands beside you wants to see you rise. Some people find comfort in your struggle because it keeps you emotionally beneath them. When Allah removes such a person from your life, it may initially feel confusing and painful. You may question why someone who was present during your hardest moments would suddenly become distant. But what you must understand is that Allah is revealing the truth about their presence. He is showing
Assalamu
you that their
alaikum wa
connection to you
rahmatullahi
was
wa
never
barakatuh.
rooted in your
My
long-term
beloved
growth.
brothers and
It was
sisters,
rooted in
I
your
want to
temporary
begin
weakness.
with something
Allah,
that
in
might
His
sound
mercy,
too
removes
good to be
those
true.
who are attached
But
to
I
your
want you
broken
to stay
version
with
because He
me,
intends
because
for you
everything
to grow
I'm
into
about
your
to say
stronger
comes
version.
directly
He
from the
removes those who were
Quran,
comfortable
directly
with your
from the
pain
Sunnah,
because He does
and
not
directly
intend for
from
you
the
to remain
lives
in
of
pain.
people
He
who
removes
tested
those
these
who
words in the
silently
most
benefited
extreme
from your
circumstances
weakness because He
imaginable
intends
and
for you
found
to
them
reclaim your
completely,
strength
absolutely,
Sometimes
miraculously
Allah
true.
removes people
There are
not because you
sentences,
are losing
short
support,
sentences,
but
sometimes
because you are
just a few
outgrowing those
words
who were
that the
only
Prophet
meant to
Muhammad, peace be
accompany
upon
you
him,
during
gave
your
us.
lowest chapter,
And when you
not
read
your
the
highest
rewards
one. Their
attached
absence
to
is
them,
not your loss.
when you
Their
understand
absence
what
is
Allah has connected to
making
these
space for
specific
people who will
words,
stand
your
beside you
first
not only when
reaction
you are
might
broken,
be,
but
is
also
this
when you are
really
strong,
possible?
confident,
Can one
and rising
sentence
toward the
really
purpose He
unlock
created
that
you
much?
for.
Yes. It
Walk
can,
away from the
because
person who
these are not
quietly blocks
ordinary
your
words.
future without
These
you
are words
realizing
of
it. My
complete
brothers and sisters,
submission,
one of the
words
most
of
dangerous
total
people you will ever
vulnerability
encounter
before
is
Allah,
not the one who
words that
openly tries
contain
to
within
destroy
them
you, but
the
the one
full
who
weight
quietly
of a
keeps you
human being,
exactly where you are,
acknowledging,
preventing
I
you
have
from
nothing,
becoming
I
who
am
Allah
nothing,
created you to be.
except
This
that
person
you
does not
are
attack you
my
directly.
Lord
They do
and
not
you are
insult you.
enough.
They do not
And when
openly
those
harm
words
you.
come from a
Instead,
heart
they
that
slowly shape your
genuinely
environment
means
in a
them,
way that
Allah
keeps you
responds
comfortable,
every
distracted,
time without
and
exception.
spiritually and
Today
mentally
I want to
stagnant.
give you
Their
4
influence is
of
subtle,
these.
but its
4
effect is
dhikr,
powerful
4
because it
phrases
delays
of
your growth
remembrance
without
that the
you even
Prophet
realizing
taught
that your
us
growth
in
has been
moments
delayed.
of the
This person
greatest
enters your life
crisis.
and
And I want to
normalizes a
show
life
you
without
through the
progress.
lives
They
of the
make
prophets
wasting
and the
time feel
companions
acceptable. They
what
make
these
laziness feel
words
normal.
produced
They make
when
distraction
they
feel
were
harmless.
said with
They
meaning.
constantly
Part
invite you
1.
toward comfort
Hasbuna
instead of
Allahu wa
discipline. They
ni'mal
pull you
wakeel.
toward temporary
Allah is
pleasure instead of
sufficient for
long-term
us,
purpose.
and
They
He
may say
is the
things like,
best
"You have time, there is no
disposer
rush,"
of
or
affairs.
"Relax,
My brother,
enjoy life
Assalamu
now,"
alaikum
or
wa
"Why are you
rahmatullahi wa
working so
barakatuh.
hard?"
My
These
beloved
words
brothers
may
and
sound
sisters,
innocent,
I want
but
to
their
begin
long-term
with
effect is
something that
dangerous.
might sound
Because while
too
you
good
remain
to be true.
comfortable, your
But I want you
potential
to stay
remains
with me,
unused.
because
While you remain
everything I'm
distracted,
about
your
to
future
say
remains
comes
delayed.
directly from the
Slowly,
Quran,
your habits
directly
begin
from
to
the
change. You
Sunnah,
become less
and
focused. You
directly
become
from
less
the lives
disciplined.
of
You begin
people
to
who
delay
tested
important
these
decisions. You
words
begin
in
to
the most
avoid difficult
extreme
actions that could elevate your
circumstances
life.
imaginable
You begin
and
to
found
settle
them
for less than what you are
completely,
capable of
absolutely,
achieving. Not because you are weak,
miraculously
but
true.
because their presence
There are
makes
sentences,
stagnation feel
short
safe.
sentences,
This type of
sometimes
person is
just a
dangerous
few
because they do
words
not
that the
destroy
Prophet
your present,
Muhammad, peace
they
be upon
destroy
him,
your
gave us.
future.
And
They
when you
keep
read the
emotionally
rewards
and mentally
attached to
trapped in
them,
a version
when you
of yourself
understand
that
what
is
Allah
smaller
has
than who you were
connected
meant
to
to
these
become.
specific
They prevent you
words,
from
your
discovering
first
your full
reaction
strength.
might
They
be,
prevent you
is
from
this
reaching
really
the purpose
possible?
Allah placed
Can
inside
one
you.
sentence
And the most
really
dangerous part
unlock
is
that
you may
much?
not even
Yes,
realize it
it
while
can.
it is happening.
Because
Allah
these are not
created
ordinary
you with a
words.
purpose.
These are
Allah did
words
not
of
create
complete
you to live a
submission,
life of
words of
distraction
total
delay, and
vulnerability
wasted
before
potential.
Allah.
placed
Words that
abilities inside
contain
you
within
that were
them
meant to grow,
the full
meant to
weight of a
expand,
human
and
being,
meant to elevate your life
acknowledging
and your
I
akhirah.
have
But
nothing,
when you
I
remain
am nothing,
close to someone who
except that
constantly
you are
pulls you away
my
from
Lord
growth,
and
their
you are
influence
enough.
becomes a silent
And when those
barrier
words
between you
come
and
from
your
a heart
destiny. The
that
Prophet ﷺ
genuinely
warned us about
means
wasting
them,
time,
Allah
because time
responds
is one of the
every
greatest
time
gifts Allah
without
has given you.
exception.
Every
Today
day
I
that
want to give
passes
you
is a part of your
4
life that
of
will never
these.
return.
4
Every
dhikr,
moment
4
spent in
phrases
distraction is
of
a moment lost
remembrance
forever.
that the
And
Prophet
anyone who
taught us
consistently
in moments of
encourages
the
you to waste
greatest
your time is
crisis.
not
And I want
protecting
to
your future,
show you
they are
through the
silently
lives
stealing
of the
from you.
prophets
When
and the
Allah removes
companions
such a
what
person from your
these
life,
words
it may
produced
initially
when they
feel
were
like
said
you
with
lost
meaning.
companionship.
Part 1.
It may feel like you lost
Hasbunallahu
comfort,
wa
but in
ni'mal
reality,
wakeel.
Allah is
Allah
removing the
is
barrier that was
sufficient
standing
for
between
us,
you and your
and
growth.
He is the
He is
best
removing the
disposer
influence that
of
was keeping you
affairs.
small.
My